The disappearance John Carter was not the kind of man who panicked easily. He had worked as a mechanic for years, his hands always steady, his mind calm even when machines failed. But that night when he came home and found the living room silent, his heart began to beat in a way he had never felt before. The house looked normal at first glance. The TV was off, the lights dim, and the small clock on the wall ticked softly. But something was wrong. His daughter Emma should have been there. She always waited for him after work. Sometimes she would sit at the table doing homework, sometimes reading one of her storybooks. Tonight the chair was empty. "Emma," John called out, his voice sharp. He checked the kitchen, the hallway, the bathroom. No answer. The door to her room was slightly open. He pushed it slowly, expecting her to be inside, maybe asleep. But the bed was untouched. Her favorite toy, a small stuffed bear, lay on the floor as if dropped in a hurry. The window was half open, the curtain moving in the night air. John felt a chill. He walked closer, and that's when he noticed the glass on the floor. Small, sharp pieces glittered in the moonlight. Something had broken the window from the outside. He knelt and touched the edges. Fresh, not old. His eyes narrowed. He looked outside into the backyard. At first he saw nothing but the trees swaying in the wind. Then he noticed strange marks on the ground. Long lines burned into the grass like something heavy had dragged across it. "What is this?" he whispered. He rushed out the back door and followed the marks. They glowed faintly as if still hot. The trail went across the yard and into the woods behind the house. John listened. The forest was quiet, too quiet. No crickets, no owls, no sound at all. Then, faintly, he heard a hum. A low, steady sound like electricity running through wires. It came from deep inside the trees. John's chest tightened. He turned back to the house, grabbed his flashlight from the drawer, and hurried outside again. The marks on the ground seemed almost unnatural, as if not made by any vehicle he knew. He followed them for a few steps, but then stopped. He realized he had no idea what he was walking into. He pulled out his phone and called the police. Within minutes, a patrol car arrived. 2 officers walked around the house, shining their lights. "She probably ran away," one of them said, glancing at John with little interest. "Kids do that." "No," John said firmly. "Emma wouldn't run away. She was happy here. And look at the glass, look at these marks in the yard." The second officer crouched, touched the burned lines, then shook his head. "Could be kids messing around. Maybe some fireworks." John clenched his fists. "You don't understand. Something took her. She wouldn't just vanish." The officers made notes, promised to file a report, and left. Their car lights disappeared into the distance, leaving John standing in the dark. He felt helpless and furious. He went back to the yard, turned on his flashlight, and forced himself to study the marks again. They led deeper into the woods, the faint glow now fading. He followed them carefully, his boots crunching on the dry leaves. The deeper he went, the stronger the hum became. It was no longer faint, it was alive, buzzing in his bones. His breath grew short. Every step made him feel like he was walking into something forbidden. Then he saw it. In a small clearing stood a shape. It was not a car, not a plane, not anything he had ever seen before. A metallic object hovered a few feet above the ground. Lights pulsed across its surface, blue and white, casting long shadows across the trees. John froze. His mind struggled to believe what his eyes showed him. He wanted to run, but he couldn't move. He only whispered his daughter's name, Emma. The machine gave off another sound, a deep vibration that shook the earth. Then, in a flash of light, it rose higher, faster than his eyes could follow. Within seconds, it disappeared into the night sky, leaving silence behind. John fell to his knees. The clearing was empty now, but the smell of burned air lingered. He looked around desperately, hoping to see Emma, hoping she had been dropped nearby. But there was nothing. Back at the house, he sat at the table, his hands shaking. The stuffed bear still lay on the floor, silent proof that she had not left on her own. His mind turned in circles, trying to make sense of what had happened. The police would never believe him. No one would. But he knew the truth. His daughter had been taken not by a person, but by something far beyond human. He looked at the open window one last time, then whispered a promise to himself. "I'll find you, Emma. No matter where they've taken you, I'll find you." And with that vow, John Carter's hunt began. The hunt begins. The night after Emma vanished, John Carter barely slept. He sat at the kitchen table with a cup of cold coffee in his hands, staring at the clock as the hours passed. Every sound outside made him rise and check the window. The police report felt useless. The officers had left him with empty words. To them, Emma was just another missing child. To John, she was everything. He needed answers. And answers, he knew, would not come from anyone else. At dawn, John pulled on his old jacket, grabbed a small backpack, and stepped out into the cool morning air. The burned marks in the grass were still there, faint but visible. They pulled at him like a trail waiting to be followed. The woods behind his house, usually a place of peace where he had walked with Emma many times, now looked like a place of secrets. He hesitated at the tree line. The forest seemed deeper than before, darker, but he forced himself to move forward. The trail was harder to see in daylight, but he noticed the broken branches, the pressed earth, and the strange ash that coated the leaves. Something heavy had moved through here, something that did not belong. John walked for hours. The woods were silent except for the crunch of his boots and the occasional snap of a twig. Every time he thought about turning back, Emma's face came to his mind and he pushed forward. By midday, he found something. Hidden among the roots of a fallen tree lay a piece of metal. He bent down and picked it up. It was smooth, silver, and warm to the touch despite the cool air. It had no screws, no seams, no marks of human design. It looked like a fragment of something larger, something not of this world. John slipped it into his backpack. Proof. Not for the police, but for himself. Proof he wasn't going insane. As the sun dipped lower, he reached a part of the forest he had never explored before. The trees were denser, their branches woven together like a wall. He had to push his way through, scraping his arms on the bark. On the other side, the ground sloped down into a hollow. At the center of the hollow was something he did not expect. A tunnel. Its opening was jagged, torn out of the earth as if something massive had forced its way in. Black soil lined the edges and a faint metallic smell drifted out. John stood at the edge, his flashlight in hand. He shone the light down. The tunnel stretched far into the ground, swallowing the beam. A cold draft blew against his face. "Emma," he whispered. His heart raced. Every instinct told him to turn back, but every thought of his daughter pushed him forward. He tightened the straps on his backpack and stepped inside. The air grew colder the deeper he went. His footsteps echoed off the walls, which were smooth in some places, clawed in others. He tried not to imagine what had made those marks. The hum he had heard the night before returned, faint but growing louder with every step. After what felt like an hour, he reached a chamber. His flashlight beam swept across metal walls, strange panels that glowed faintly, and machines unlike anything he had ever seen. Pipes ran along the ceiling, dripping with a liquid that hissed when it hit the floor. John's breath caught. This was no cave. This was a facility. He moved slowly, his light catching glimpses of cages along the far wall. Some were empty. Others held scraps of fabric, broken toys, and strange tools. His stomach twisted when he saw a small shoe lying in one of the cages. It wasn't Emma's, but it was a child's. "God," he muttered. He kept walking, careful to stay quiet. Then he froze. Voices, not human. They echoed through the chamber, sharp, metallic tones that rose and fell in patterns he couldn't understand. John ducked behind a large machine and peeked out. Figures moved across the far side of the chamber. Tall, thin, their bodies covered in armor that shimmered with light. Their faces were hidden behind masks, their eyes glowing faintly. They carried weapons that pulsed with energy. Aliens. John's mouth went dry. He pressed himself against the cold metal, afraid even to breathe too loudly. He knew with absolute certainty that these were the ones who had taken Emma. The voices grew louder, then faded as the figures moved down another passage. When the sound was gone, John stepped out carefully. His hands shook, but his mind was clear. He could not turn back now. He had seen too much. He pulled the piece of silver metal from his backpack and looked at it again. A fragment of their world, now in his hands. He slipped it back into the bag, then turned toward the passage where the figures had gone. Somewhere in this underground maze, his daughter was alive. He could feel it. John clenched his fists, his fear slowly turning into fire. He didn't know how he would fight them. He didn't know how he would survive. But he knew one thing: he would not stop. Not until he found Emma. And so, deeper into the tunnels, John Carter continued his hunt. The alien facility. The tunnels twisted like veins beneath the earth. John Carter moved slowly, his flashlight beam slicing through the darkness. Each step echoed too loudly, reminding him that he was alone in a place not meant for human feet. He had no plan, no weapon, only his determination to find Emma. The deeper he went, the more the tunnels changed. The rough dirt walls gave way to smooth metal, as if the earth itself had been replaced by some kind of living machine. The hum he had heard since entering now filled every corner, vibrating through his bones. He tried not to imagine it was alive. John paused at an intersection. One tunnel glowed faintly with a soft blue light. The other was darker, colder, silent. He listened, straining his ears. Somewhere far down the glowing tunnel he thought he heard voices again. Those metallic sounds he could not understand. He chose the darker path, hoping it would keep him hidden. The air grew heavier, almost thick. His flashlight flickered once, twice before steadying. The tunnel opened into another chamber. John stepped inside and froze. It was massive. The ceiling arched high above, lined with panels that pulsed with dim light. Strange machines stood in rows, each one humming softly. And along the walls, cages. John's chest tightened. There were dozens of them. Some were empty, their metal bars bent or rusted. Others held scraps of clothing, shoes, and broken belongings. He felt his stomach twist when he spotted a stuffed rabbit lying on the floor of one cell, its ear torn off. Not Emma's, but a child's. God help me, he whispered. He moved carefully, checking each cage. No sign of Emma. But in one, far at the end, he found something he did not expect. A figure sat curled in the shadows, small and thin. At first, John thought it was another child. Then it looked up. Its eyes glowed faintly green, wide and frightened. Its skin was pale, almost silver in the dim light, and its face too sharp, too delicate to be human. The figure clutched the bars weakly and whispered in a voice that was both soft and strange. "Help." John stumbled back, his heart pounding. It was not Emma, it wasn't even human. But the fear in those glowing eyes was real. The creature looked young, maybe no older than Emma herself. For a long moment, John could only stare. This was madness. Aliens, cages, experiments, it was too much. He should turn back, escape while he still could. But the small figure spoke again, its voice trembling. "They took me, please." John swallowed hard. He didn't know if he could trust it. But leaving it here felt wrong. And maybe, just maybe, this creature knew something about where Emma had been taken. He knelt beside the bars. "Who are you?" he whispered. The figure tilted its head as if struggling with his words. Then it pointed to itself and whispered a single sound. It was not a name John could understand. More like a soft note of music. He nodded anyway. "All right," he said quietly. "I'll try." He searched the cage for a lock, but there was none. The bars seemed fused together, smooth and seamless. He pulled at them with all his strength, but they didn't move. His hand slipped, the metal cold and slick. The figure lifted its hand weakly. A faint glow sparked from its palm, touching the bars. For a moment the metal shimmered, then cracked slightly. John stared. This child had power. Again, he whispered. The glow sparked brighter this time, and the bars bent with a sharp hiss. John pulled, his muscles straining until the gap widened just enough. The figure slipped out, stumbling into his arms. Its skin was cold, but its grip was strong. Before John could speak, a sound shook the chamber. Heavy footsteps. The metallic voices returned, closer this time. The alien child's eyes widened in fear. John grabbed its hand. "We have to move." They ran across the chamber, ducking behind a machine. Light swept across the floor as tall, armored figures entered. John held his breath, pressing the child close to his chest. The guards spoke in sharp, mechanical tones, their weapons glowing faintly. One of them paused near the broken cage, scanning it with a beam of red light. John's pulse raced. If they looked any closer, they'd see the bent bars. The alien child squeezed his hand. A faint shimmer spread across them both, like heat rising from pavement. John looked down in shock. His own arm was blurred, almost invisible. Camouflage. The guards moved past them, their footsteps heavy, their voices echoing. After a tense moment, they left through another tunnel. The hum of their weapons faded into silence. The shimmer around John and the child faded. He looked at it in awe. "You saved us." The creature said nothing, only nodded weakly. John exhaled, his heart still racing. He should have been terrified, but instead he felt a spark of hope. This alien child was proof that Emma wasn't alone. Others had been taken. And if this one was still alive, maybe his daughter was too. He stood, tightening the straps of his backpack. Listen, he whispered. You help me find Emma and I'll help you get out of here, deal? The figure's glowing eyes blinked once, then slowly nodded. For the first time since the nightmare began, John didn't feel completely alone. But deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. The rescue John Carter had no idea how he was still alive. The armored figures had passed within a few feet of him, their weapons humming, their eyes glowing like fire in the dark. Yet somehow the alien child's strange shimmer had hidden them both. His heart was still racing, but his grip on the child's hand tightened. The chamber behind them echoed with metallic voices. The guards would soon notice the bent bars, the missing prisoner. They had seconds, maybe less. John whispered, "We have to go. Now." The child nodded, weak but determined, and followed as John crept along the edge of the chamber. He kept low, moving from one shadow to the next, his flashlight switched off. The faint glow from the machines was enough to see. They reached another tunnel. John ducked inside, pulling the child with him. The hum of the facility grew louder, vibrating through the metal walls. He felt like he was inside the belly of some giant machine. Every breath seemed too loud. Every step risked discovery. The tunnel opened into a narrower corridor. Pipes ran along the walls, dripping a strange glowing liquid. The smell was sharp, almost electric. John didn't want to touch it. The child tugged at his sleeve and shook its head as if warning him. He nodded back, then came the sound he dreaded. Footsteps. Fast, heavy, closing in. John spun, searching desperately. Ahead, a small hatch stood slightly open. He shoved it wider and pushed the child inside before crawling after it. They fell into a cramped maintenance shaft, just tall enough to crouch. The hatch sealed behind them. Through the metal slats, John saw shadows pass by, guards rushing down the corridor. They barked in their strange language, their voices sharp and angry. One of them paused, scanning the area with a glowing device. John held his breath, pressing the child against the wall. Seconds stretched into forever. Then finally the guards moved on. Their voices faded. John exhaled slowly. His hands trembled, but his resolve hardened. He turned to the child. "We can't hide forever. Do you know a way out?" The child hesitated, then pointed upward. A faint blue glow pulsed through a set of pipes above. John followed the line with his eyes. It seemed to lead higher into the facility. Maybe to the surface, maybe to Emma. They crawled through the shaft, the air tight and hot. The metal groaned under their weight, but it held. John's back ached, his knees burned, but he kept moving. He couldn't stop now. Not when he was closer than ever. The shaft ended at another grate. John pressed his ear against it. He heard voices again, but these were different. Softer, quieter, like a conversation rather than orders. Slowly, he lifted the grate and peeked out. What he saw made his blood run cold. The room beyond was filled with cages, dozens, maybe hundreds, stacked in rows. Inside were not just children, but also strange creatures of different shapes and sizes. Some cried softly, some sat in silence, their eyes vacant. It was a prison. A collection. John clenched his teeth. Rage boiled in his chest. Whoever these aliens were, they weren't just kidnappers. They were hunters, collectors of the helpless. The child tugged his sleeve, pointing toward the far side of the room. A control panel glowed faintly. John understood at once. If they could open the cages, they might start a distraction or even an escape. He lowered himself out of the shaft, landing quietly. The child followed. Together they crept through the shadows, past cages filled with eyes that seemed to beg for help. John forced himself not to stop. Emma was his goal. At the panel, John studied the strange symbols. He had no idea what any of them meant, but the child raised its hand, glowing faintly, and pressed its palm against the surface. The panel beeped. The locks on the cages clicked one by one. The silence shattered. Doors swung open. Voices rose. Children crying, creatures screeching, claws scraping against metal. Panic spread like fire. Guards shouted from the corridor, rushing toward the chaos. "Time to go," John hissed, grabbing the child's hand again. They darted between the cages as the prisoners spilled into the room. Some ran, others fought back. A tall creature with scaled skin swung its arms, knocking two guards into a wall. Sparks flew as weapons discharged. The facility shook with the noise. Alarms blared, red lights flashing overhead. John's ears rang, but he kept moving. He pushed through the crowd, heading for a side passage the child pointed out. A guard appeared, blocking their way. Its weapon crackled with energy. John froze, knowing he couldn't fight. But the child lifted its hand again. A burst of green light shot forward, striking the guard's mask. The figure screamed, sparks flying as it collapsed. John stared in shock, then pulled the child forward. "Remind me never to underestimate you." They ran into the side passage, the chaos of the prison fading behind them. The tunnel sloped upward toward faint light. John's chest burned with hope. Maybe this was it. Maybe they were close to the surface. Maybe to Emma, but before they reached the end, the ground shook violently. The walls groaned. Ahead, a massive door slammed shut, sealing their path. Behind them, the alarm still screamed. More guards would come. John pressed his hand against the cold metal of the door, frustration boiling inside him. He was so close, yet still trapped in this nightmare. He looked at the alien child, who stared back with tired but determined eyes. For a moment, John felt something unexpected. Not just fear, not just rage, but a strange sense of trust. This child was not his daughter. But it was lost too. Stolen too. And together maybe they had a chance. He squared his shoulders. "We'll find another way." The child nodded. And together, in the heart of an alien prison, they prepared to fight their way forward. The truth revealed, the alarms never stopped. Red light flashed along the metal walls, painting John Carter's face in sharp shadows. His chest heaved, sweat running down his back, but he didn't stop moving. The alien child clung to his hand as they ran deeper into the tunnels, away from the sealed door and the chaos they had left behind. Every corner looked the same. Smooth walls, glowing pipes, doors with no handles. It was like running inside a machine that had no end. John's mind raced. He had escaped one trap, but he was still inside the beast. They stopped in a small side chamber hidden in the dark. John pressed his ear to the wall, listening for the heavy steps of the armored guards. For now, the corridor outside was silent. He dropped to one knee, catching his breath. "Emma," he whispered to himself. Saying her name hurt, but it gave him strength. The alien child tilted its head, studying him with glowing green eyes. Then in its broken, halting voice, it spoke a word John had never expected. "Emma." John froze. His eyes snapped to the child. "What did you say?" The child repeated it, clearer this time. "Emma, taken." John grabbed its shoulders. "You know where she is? Tell me." His voice came out harsher than he meant, and the child flinched. He softened, lowering his tone. "Please, she's my daughter." "Do you know where?" The child closed its eyes, pressing its small hand to the floor. The glow spread out in a faint ripple of light, like water flowing through the metal. John watched, stunned. Images flickered in his mind, shadows of rooms, doors, and faces. Among them he saw her, Emma. She sat in a cage like the others, her hands wrapped around the bars, her eyes wide with fear. John's heart clenched. She's alive, but the image shifted. Emma's cage was being moved, rolled down a corridor toward something vast and shining. At the end stood not only aliens but also humans, men in dark uniforms carrying rifles. They spoke with the aliens as equals. John's stomach twisted. "Humans here?" The vision ended. The child opened its eyes and whispered, "Not all of them. Not all aliens, some your kind." John staggered back, his mind reeling. He had been ready to fight monsters, but humans working with them, trading children like goods. The betrayal cut deeper than any weapon. "Why?" he muttered, his voice hoarse. "Why would humans help them?" The child hesitated, searching for words. "Trade, power they give. You weapons, you give them us, children, young ones. Strong minds." John felt sick. Rogue humans working with aliens, selling children for technology. Emma wasn't just stolen, she was part of a deal. A bargain between traitors. His fists clenched until his nails dug into his palms. Rage burned hotter than fear now. He wasn't just fighting to save his daughter. He was fighting to tear down whatever twisted alliance had taken her. Before he could speak, a sound cut through the chamber. A sharp click, the hum of energy charging. John spun, pulling the child behind him. Two figures stood in the doorway. Not aliens, humans. Their uniforms were dark, their rifles sleek and unfamiliar, glowing faintly with alien tech. One of them smirked. Well, looks like one of the locals got further than he should." John's blood ran cold. These weren't soldiers he recognized. They weren't here to save anyone. They were part of it. The second man raised his rifle. "Orders are clear, kill him. Take the asset back." His eyes flicked to the alien child. John's heart pounded. He had nothing, no weapon, no plan. Just desperation. The first man aimed his rifle. But before he could fire, the alien child raised its hand. A burst of green light shot across the room, striking the weapon. Sparks flew, the gun exploding in the man's hands. He screamed, falling back. John didn't hesitate. He lunged at the second man, slamming him into the wall. The rifle fired, a bolt of energy scorching the ceiling. John wrestled with him, his muscles burning with adrenaline. With a desperate shove, he knocked the weapon away and drove his fist into the man's jaw. The soldier crumpled. Breathing hard, John grabbed the fallen rifle. The metal was strange in his hands, heavier than it looked, the barrel glowing faintly. He pointed it at the smoldering doorway. The child tugged at his sleeve, whispering urgently. "More coming, many." John nodded grimly. They couldn't stay here. He pulled the child close and ran through another corridor, the stolen weapon clutched tight. As they moved, John's mind replayed the vision. Emma in the cage. Humans dealing with aliens. His daughter wasn't just lost, she was being moved, handed over like property. But there was something else in the child's voice, a detail that stuck like a thorn. Strong minds. What did that mean? Why children? Why Emma? He didn't know yet. But one truth was clear. Emma was alive, and she was still somewhere in this facility or beyond it. And John would burn the whole place to the ground if that's what it took to bring her back. He glanced at the alien child, who kept pace beside him despite its weakness. In its glowing eyes he saw fear but also trust. They were both stolen, both hunted, and now they were both running for the same thing, freedom. John tightened his grip on the rifle. His voice was low but fierce. "I don't care who's in this. Aliens, traitors, all of them. I'll find her. I'll stop them. Every last one." The child nodded once, its eyes burning bright. And so, through the endless tunnels of steel and shadow, John Carter pressed on. The truth had broken him, but it had also given him fire. The hunt was no longer just about finding his daughter. It was about justice. The battle, the tunnel shook with alarms. Red lights pulsed overhead, bathing the metallic walls in a bloody glow. John Carter gripped the stolen alien rifle tightly, his knuckles white. The alien child stayed close at his side, its glowing eyes sharp and alert despite its frail body. They had been running for what felt like hours, hunted by both humans and aliens. Every corridor echoed with shouts. Every turn revealed another patrol. There was no more hiding. If he wanted to reach Emma, he would have to fight. The child tugged at his sleeve, pointing forward. A wide door loomed at the end of the tunnel, glowing with symbols John couldn't read. But the hum behind it was powerful, deeper than anything he had felt before. It vibrated in his chest like a drum. "That's where they took her, isn't it?" he whispered. The child nodded once. John pressed his palm to the panel. Nothing. He cursed under his breath. Then the child stepped forward, placed its small glowing hand against the surface, and the symbol shifted. The door hissed and slid open. The sight beyond stole John's breath. It was a vast chamber larger than any hangar he had ever seen. At the center stood a portal, an enormous ring of pulsing energy. Blue light rippled inside it like liquid glass, swirling and alive. Machines hummed around it, feeding power into its core. Dozens of armored aliens stood guard, their weapons glowing. Behind them, cages were lined up like cargo, and in one of those cages, John saw her, Emma. She clutched the bars, her face pale, her eyes wide. Even through the chaos of lights and guards, John recognized the small stuffed bear in her lap, the one she never let go. His heart nearly broke. "Emma," he shouted before he could stop himself. Her head snapped up. "Dad!" Her voice cracked with fear and hope, but the shout had given them away. The guards turned in unison, weapons raised. The chamber filled with the hiss of charging energy. John dove behind a metal crate as the first blasts struck, sparks exploding around him. He fired the alien rifle blindly, the weapon kicking hard against his shoulder. A bolt of energy struck one guard square in the chest, dropping it instantly. The others spread out, their glowing eyes fixed on him. "Run!" John yelled at the child, but the child didn't run. It raised its hands and a wave of green energy rippled outward. The ground shook, knocking several guards off their feet. One tried to rise, but the child's eyes blazed brighter, and the guard's weapon shattered into sparks. John used the opening, sprinting forward, firing as he moved. He weaved between crates, his mind locked on the cage where Emma sat. Every blast, every shot was one step closer to her, but the aliens weren't the only threat. From the far side of the chamber, more figures poured in. Humans in dark uniforms, rifles crackling with alien power. John's stomach twisted with rage. They moved like soldiers, efficient and ruthless, aiming for him and the child without hesitation. He ducked as a volley of shots scorched the air. Sparks rained down. He rolled behind another crate, returning fire. Two of the traitors fell, but more advanced, their boots striking the floor in unison. The child cried out. John spun to see a guard seize it, lifting it by the arm. Without thinking, John charged. He slammed the butt of his rifle into the guard's mask, shattering the glowing visor. The alien dropped, its grip loosening. The child stumbled free, its eyes glowing brighter than ever. Together they pressed on, step by step, shot by shot. The air burned with smoke and sparks. The sound was deafening. Blasts, screams, the hum of the portal swelling louder with each passing second. Finally, they reached the cages. John dropped to his knees, yanking at the lock on Emma's. "Emma, it's me." "Dad!" Tears streamed down her face. She pushed her small hands through the bars, reaching for him. The lock wouldn't budge. John cursed and slammed the rifle against it again and again. The metal cracked but held. The child stepped forward. Its hand glowed, pressing against the lock. With a hiss, the bars bent outward. Emma scrambled into her father's arms. John held her tight, trembling with relief. "I've got you. I've got you, baby." But there was no time. The chamber shook violently. More guards stormed in, their weapons glowing brighter. The humans shouted orders, closing in from both sides. They were surrounded. Emma clung to John's neck. "Dad, don't let them take me again!" He pressed his forehead against hers. "They won't, not while I'm breathing." He turned to the child. "The portal. Can it get us out?" The child's eyes narrowed. "Yes, but not safe. Safer than staying here." They ran for the portal. Guards fired from every angle. John twisted, firing wildly, knocking two aside. A shot grazed his arm, burning his skin. He hissed in pain but didn't slow down. The portal roared as they approached, the energy swirling violently. The air around it felt alive, pulling at them. Emma clung tighter, terrified. Behind them, a human officer shouted, "Stop them! Don't let the asset through." John turned, rage boiling inside him. He fired one last volley, forcing the enemies back. Then he looked at the alien child, who now stood at the portal's edge, its glowing hand raised. The swirling light stretched open, brighter, wider. The pull grew stronger, like a storm ready to swallow them whole. John tightened his grip on Emma. His voice shook but held firm. "Where does it lead?" The child's answer was quiet, almost lost in the roar. "To my world." John hesitated for only a heartbeat. Staying meant death, or worse. Going through meant the unknown. But Emma was alive in his arms, and the child had given them this chance. He met the child's glowing eyes and nodded. "Then we go together." And with that, John Carter leapt into the portal, carrying his daughter, as the world behind them erupted in fire and rage. The choice. The world on the other side of the portal hit John Carter like a storm. One moment he was inside a steel prison. The next he was falling through blinding blue light. His stomach lurched, his ears rang, and then silence. His boots slammed against solid ground. He dropped to one knee, clutching Emma to his chest. The alien child tumbled beside him, landing hard but scrambling up quickly. John gasped for breath. The air here was different, sharp and cold, almost metallic. He lifted his head, and his eyes widened. They were standing under two moons. The sky stretched dark and endless, filled with constellations he had never seen. Towers of black stone rose in the distance, jagged and alien. Strange plants glowed faintly across the ground, their colors shifting as if alive. Emma buried her face in his shoulder. "Dad, where are we?" John swallowed, his voice rough. "Not home, but we're together. That's all that matters." The alien child stood still, its glowing eyes fixed on the horizon. For the first time since John had met it, the child looked almost calm. "My world," it whispered. Before John could speak, a deafening boom echoed behind them. He spun around. The portal still glowed, unstable and violent. Shadows flickered inside. Figures appeared, armored aliens and dark uniformed humans forcing their way through. John's heart sank. The fight wasn't over. They had followed. He raised the stolen rifle, but his hands shook. His body was exhausted, his arm still burned from the grazing shot. He couldn't win another battle like the last. Not here. Not now. Emma clutched his jacket. "Dad, I'm scared." He pressed his forehead to hers for a moment. "I know, baby, I am too." The alien child tugged at his sleeve. "Portal. Closing. Soon." Its glowing hand pointed at the unstable ring. If close, they trapped. If not, they follow. John understood immediately. They had one chance. Destroy the portal before more soldiers crossed, or risk being hunted across this world. But if they destroyed it, they would cut themselves off. No way back to Earth. No way home. The choice hit him like a punch to the chest. If he closed the portal, he might never set foot on Earth again. Emma would never see her home, her school, her friends. He would never sit in their kitchen again, never drink coffee in the quiet mornings. Everything they had known would be gone. But if he left the portal open, more would come. Soldiers, guards, traitors. They would take Emma again, and this time he might not get her back. John's jaw tightened. His heart screamed one thing. His mind screamed another. The alien child looked at him, its eyes glowing with urgency. Choose now. The first wave of enemies stepped through. A human officer raised his rifle. "Carter, stop running. Give us the girl. We'll let you live." John's grip on Emma tightened. Her small arms locked around his neck. He stared at the man, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. "You'll never touch her again." The officer smirked. "Then you die here." Energy bolts flew. John dove behind a jagged stone. Emma clutched tight. The alien child raised its hand, deflecting some of the blasts with a glowing shield. The ground shook under the assault. John looked at the portal. It pulsed wildly, cracks of light splitting the air around it. It was unstable, dangerous. He realized he didn't need to close it gently. He needed to end it completely. He set Emma down behind the stone. "Stay here no matter what, don't move." Her eyes filled with tears. "Dad, don't leave me." He cupped her face, forcing a smile. "I'm not leaving, I'm fighting for you. Always." He turned to the alien child. "Can you overload it?" The child's eyes narrowed. "Yes. But cost." "What cost?" The child didn't answer. It only lifted its glowing hand, green light sparking across its skin. John understood. The child would burn itself out to destroy the portal. Maybe worse. His stomach twisted, but there was no time to argue. Together, they charged toward the portal. John fired the alien rifle, covering the child. Every shot burned his shoulder, but he kept moving. Guards fell. Traitors shouted. The chamber of blue light roared like thunder. The child pressed its hands against the swirling surface. Its body glowed brighter and brighter, shaking with strain. The portal screamed, cracks of energy shooting out like lightning. The officer shouted, "No, stop them!" John dropped the rifle, threw himself at the nearest soldier, and fought with his bare hands. Rage and love fueled every punch. He wouldn't let anyone past him. Not now. Not ever. Behind him, the alien child screamed, its glow blinding. The portal shattered in a burst of light. A shockwave ripped across the ground, throwing enemies into the air. The ring crumbled, sparks vanishing into nothingness. Silence fell. The portal was gone. John staggered, coughing, his ears ringing. He turned to see the child collapsed on the ground, its glow dim. He rushed to it, kneeling. "Hey, stay with me." The child's eyes flickered weakly. "Safe, now. They cannot follow." Emma ran to them, clinging to John's arm. "Dad, what happened?" John pulled her close, holding her and the alien child together. His heart ached with both relief and sorrow. They were alive. The enemy was trapped behind. But Earth was gone to them. He looked at the alien sky, the twin moons casting cold light over the strange land. His world was far away now, maybe forever. But Emma was in his arms. She was breathing. She was safe. That was enough. He stood slowly, carrying Emma, the alien child leaning against his side. His voice was steady, firm, unbroken. "We'll find a way to survive, a way to fight back, a way home." Emma buried her face in his shoulder. The alien child's dim eyes glowed faintly in agreement. And so, on a world not his own, John Carter made his choice. He would not stop. Not until Emma had her future back. Not until the ones who stole her paid in full. The hunt was not over. It had only just begun.